All right, let's talk about something that pretty much every marketer has on their radar: third-party data. It's one of those things that promises a whole new world of targeting, but let's be real, actually making it work can be a huge headache. Today, we're going to break down how to unlock its true power. I want you to just imagine this for a second. Right now, you probably know what your leads do on your turf, right? On your website, with your emails. But what if you could see beyond that? What if you knew that a lead who's been totally quiet for 6 months is suddenly, right now, researching your biggest competitor? That's the game we're talking about. And the key that unlocks that superpower? It's all about third-party data. In simple terms, it's just information that gives you a window into what your leads are doing out there on the wider web. It shows you what they're really interested in, not just what they click on when they're on your site. So, the big promise, the reason everyone gets so excited about this stuff, is the dream of reaching the absolute right person at the perfect moment. You can finally spot those high-value leads who are showing all the right buying signals, even if they haven't talked to you directly in ages. It's about being proactive, not just reactive. Okay, but here's the reality check. That dream, for a lot of us, it feels super far away. In the real world, it's often just confusing. You've got all this powerful, expensive data and nothing. It feels like you've been handed this incredibly complex puzzle, but with no picture on the box to guide you. So why is it so frustrating? Well, it usually boils down to what I call the marketer's double dilemma. It's what happens when we try to use these shiny new tools with really old school thinking. And it creates two huge problems that just sabotage the whole thing from the get-go. Problem number one is the shrinking audience trap. And problem number two is the endless content grind. And trust me, these two feed each other. It creates this vicious cycle where the more you try to personalize, the smaller your audience gets and the bigger your workload becomes. It feels impossible to make any real progress. So let's look at that first problem. Say you start with 100 leads. The old way of thinking tells you to filter, 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 right? Find that one perfect, super specific segment. But after you apply all those filters, poof, your audience of 100 is now just 10 people. And this really hits the nail on the head. You're putting in all this effort just to make your audience smaller and smaller. It's a ton of work for a group so tiny it can barely move the needle. It's a classic case of diminishing returns, and it just doesn't scale. And that leads us right into the second dilemma, the content grind. Because for every one of those tiny little segments you just made, you have to kick off this painful manual process. You analyze them, you write a custom email, you chase down approvals, and then you have to do it all over again for every single segment. The workload is just brutal. And here's the real killer. All that work, it creates what you could call a psychological hurdle. The whole project just seems so overwhelming and so daunting that most of the time, it just dies. The best ideas never even get started because the manual effort feels way too high. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do we actually break out of this cycle? So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do we actually break out of this cycle? It all comes down to a fundamental shift in how we think about our audience. This is the big aha moment. We have to stop filtering and start clustering. Here is the difference in a nutshell. The old way, filtering, is all about subtraction. It's about shrinking your audience to find a perfect fit. The new way, clustering, is about organization. You take your entire audience and simply group them based on what they're interested in. Nobody gets left out. Look at it this way. Instead of chopping down your 100 leads to just 10, you keep all 100 of them. You just sort them. Maybe 20% are really into topic A, another 20% are into topic B, and so on. Your audience is still 100% of what you started with. You haven't lost anyone. So let this sink in, because it's the most important takeaway. The goal is not to shrink your audience. The goal is to speak to all of your audience just, in a way that's way more relevant and personal to them. You get maximum reach and better personalization. Okay, that's brilliant. Clustering totally solves the shrinking audience problem, right? But what about that insane content grind we talked about? Well, that's where the second half of the solution comes in. It's time to let AI do the heavy lifting. I absolutely love this quote because it completely reframes our job as marketers. Our real value isn't in manually cranking out 50 different versions of an email. Our value is in being the architect, designing the smart system, and then removing the bottlenecks that slow it down. You can see right here how our role completely evolves. Before, we were stuck in the weeds, doing all the tedious, manual work. Now, with AI, our job gets elevated. We focus on the high-level strategy, on crafting the right prompts for the AI, and on giving that all-important final human sign-off. And look, this isn't some sci-fi fantasy. This is happening right now. Modern marketing automation platforms have generative AI built right in, and it's designed to do exactly this. It takes those clusters you made and automatically whips up optimized content for each one. That content grind problem? Solved. But hold on. There is one last, absolutely critical piece to this whole puzzle. You can't just flip an AI switch and expect magic. To get great results, you have to first build a solid foundation. You need to build what we'll call your content engine. You gotta remember, an AI is an incredible tool, but it's not a mind reader. It can't just create amazing, on-brand, personalized content from a totally blank slate. It needs you to give it high-quality raw materials to work with, the building blocks of your brand's unique knowledge. So what are these raw materials? Think of them as seeds for your AI. You feed it your greatest hits, your best performing subject lines, your most powerful customer stories, your core value props, your brand voice, and even data on what's worked in past campaigns. You're basically giving the AI your secret sauce. And when you put all of this together, the clustering mindset instead of filtering, the AI doing the heavy lifting, and a well-fed content engine, something amazing happens. Your marketing stops being this exhausting series of one-off campaigns and becomes a single, scalable, intelligent system that actually works for you. So I'll just leave you with this one last question to chew on. When you look at your own marketing team and how you all work, are you focused on just checking off the next task on the list? Or are you focused on building the systems that make those tasks obsolete? The answer to that could change absolutely everything.